I'm Charlotte, the Operations Director at Immerse Education. We had a requirement to onboard people quicker and in a more detailed way. Waybook serves as a really key pillar of onboarding new employees to the team, but also all of our seasonal employees as well. Since using Waybook, better than halved our onboarding time, but also really upped the quality of that onboarding. In consolidating lots of tools and in replacing some of the other systems we've used previously, I'd be confident to say that it's definitely saving us, at least kind of 50K in our onboarding and training. Engaging with Waybook, it's so commonplace, like every day. To think how much we're going to use the Slack integration now that we don't have to find it on Waybook, that's already going to save us time because it is just such a trusted resource for information. And I would describe Waybook like a map. I'm thinking of like the tube map, really clear patterns and ways to navigate it. Under there is just so much information, the whole of the city, but really easily navigatable.
Can you describe briefly a little bit about the business and what your role is within the business?
I'm Charlotte, the Operations Director at Immerse Education. We are a short course provider of summer experiences for students aged 15 to 18. Primarily, this is students coming from overseas to the UK to study an academic programme in Oxford, Cambridge or London. And we are quite a small company, around 35 people now, but we've grown quite a lot in a short space of time to now welcome over 2,000 students in the UK and also run short academic courses overseas in the US, in Singapore and Tokyo this summer. I started at Immerse in May 2021. We'd been through a kind of post-COVID, quite an odd kind of few transition years. Immerse was actually started by our founder, Sean, back in 2012, but a lot changed in kind of 21 onwards as we grew the team really from Sean up. When I joined, there were 3 of us, and now we've gone from kind of a team of 3 to as I say, about 35 in just a few years. So we weren't using Waybook when I first joined. It was very much all remote working and just kind of piecing together bits of information here and there. But I think we brought it in quite soon after that, and it was perfect because that was the time we were then going to really grow the team. So
can you think back to 2021? What sort of challenges were you feeling or experiencing in the business that originally brought you to Waybook?
Back in 21, we were so few people. Everyone was wearing lots of hats. Back then, we'd all come from similar types of businesses. We had a load of experience in different areas. I had worked in kind of a more sales role before. I'd worked in academic, also in operations. So you've got kind of all of this experience in your head of knowing how to do things, but actually like there was no mapped process. So new people would start and it would take, the few of us to kind of train everyone in all of these different areas in a quite a haphazard way, not super streamlined, just because of how we'd kind of grown and scaled up since then. Not a super straightforward process to onboard new starters and to have a kind of central, there was really no central record of information.
What were the business impacts you were feeling that made you getting Waybook a priority?
We had a requirement to onboard people quicker and in a more detailed way. Then for that central record to become a kind of reliable source of information, something that we could then update and improve rather than starting from scratch each time. So I would say, it was speed of onboarding and then like to kind of trust in that information as well. Being able to go in and kind of constantly update it and improve it. Also, as soon as we started to implement Waybook, it gave real accountability to those teams as they were growing to take ownership over their own area and constantly be making improvements as new people started in their team, kind of balanced out that accountability wider within the team. It also meant that everyone had visibility over like the quality we were expecting from any particular process and the detail. So the requirements were set the same across each team, developing their part of Waybook. So we had that, aligned quality as well, if that makes sense.
What is the core usages of Waybook in Immerse?
Waybook serves as a really key pillar of onboarding new employees to the team, but also all of our seasonal employees as well. Because of the nature of our business, we're having a huge amount of staff start, really just ahead of the summer who need to get up to speed really, really quickly, really hit the ground running to welcome so many students in person. We need them to have access to all of the key information, at their fingertips. And then also because of just needing to be a really efficient, agile team where we're, still really focusing on growing the business, we need a source of practices, processes, key information to allow us to be very agile in any conversations we're having about the business. I'm just thinking of kind of program development for me in particular, roadmaps and processes that you can just call on very quickly to follow. That's what I'm using it like day to day for. For the sales and marketing team, the more commercial side of things, all of the program detail, in any of our programs, there's going to be so many different things to explain to potential students. We use Waybook as a resource for that as well. Our academic team have their whole part of it where they're detailing all of their the experiential learning frameworks that underpin the courses. That's where the commercial team are going to get their insights into that.
What are the most valuable uses for Waybook internally?
A really valuable part of Waybook is being able to segment your library into different areas, and they can be really focused on, whatever's the content of that area, academic being a perfect example. The academic section of Waybook might look quite different to the marketing section of Waybook, but that team can really have ownership over that area and design it in a way that's really going to make sense for them. And then users, as they're going through that flow, will kind of really get to know the team by how all the content is laid out and how you work through it. So that's been really key. I think it's also just really easily navigatable, really user friendly. So it's not overwhelming. So much content in there, but actually, being able to just open and close the different areas of the library that you want to get more detail on, super easy to find what you're looking for. I always find that I'm using the search function and now the Slack integration all the time to signpost people to the right things as well in Waybook. So they've both been really useful functions for us.
What would you say is the specific business value that you've had of using Waybook?
So since using Waybook, I would say it's definitely, better than halved our onboarding time, but also, really upped the quality of that onboarding. Once someone is onboarded and are really functioning as part of the team, it's saving us time every day in being able to recall that information. Now it's just second nature for us to just go to Waybook and find the information. The whole team are kind of really using their initiative to find the detail they need, rather than all of those conversations where you're outlining the processes and signposting people places. Now everyone just goes straight to Waybook and keeps it very easy. In consolidating lots of tools and in replacing some of the other systems we've used previously, I'd be confident to say that it's definitely saving us, at least kind of 50K in our onboarding and training. Just the amount of times a day that you say kind of check Waybook rather than having to go through a process with someone is something that we kind of internally all acknowledge.
What has Waybook meant to you in your role?
For me in my role, it makes a huge difference because we have quite a global team as well, as well as operating globally. We have team members kind of really based all over the world. So the whole team to have this source of information to rely on, anytime and call upon is just so useful. It's not slowing down business at any point. So that's really helpful. And then as we look to onboard so many staff towards this summer, we'll have kind of 200 extra users of Waybook, which will just mean that, again, we just have this resource for them. All of our best practice, all of the scenario training that we go through, they'll have that at their fingertips, all throughout delivery. So that's going to massively improve the quality of our delivery. And, when you're, sizing up to that scale every year, that's going to be really important.
What would you say surprised you about using Waybook?
For me, I'm surprised at how it's not overwhelming for new starters now. When we first started using it, we would say, look, there's a lot of information on there. So, do a little bit a day, kind of step by step. Now that we are using some more of the functionality with learning paths, I think that kind of takes that away, but also in just the way it's laid out and how user-friendly it is, it's actually not overwhelming at all. As I say, you can go into the separate sections of your library and find exactly what you're looking for. You can call on specific information very, very quickly. Now I think we can keep growing to, have more and more content on there all the time. And it's just going to become more intuitive and user-friendly and accessible.
How have you experienced Waybook from a content creation perspective?
A new thing that we do at Immerse, we want to kind of document the process and the experience. We are always adding, me personally, I've added a lot of case studies over the years where we've gone into a new location and delivered a new program. Our first time going to Sydney to run a program there, there's so much learning that happens. For me personally, Waybook's the place where I will pull all of my experience, all of my data and insights from that particular program, compile it all into Waybook as a case study, and then it's there just to go back and reference at any time. New team members that join, they can review those case studies. And it's only going to make our program development function stronger. So I've used it for that. And then at the moment, building out this new onboarding for seasonal staff, I'm using the learning pass to kind of start trying to create a really clear, simple path for their onboarding, with accessing, as detailed information, but also just as clear and simple information as they need to get them ready for delivery.
What does the next kind of like 6 to 12 months look like for you, and what role does Waybook have within that?
We really hope that Waybook just continues to grow as we grow. We have a really exciting summer planned of new locations. This will be our first year delivering in Singapore for individuals and in Tokyo and in Boston as well. So new locations means loads more best practices and case studies and guides that we'll be adding. As we transition seasonal staff onboarding to Waybook, this will be our first iteration of going through that. So I'm sure there'll be ways we can learn and improve that process. But also, just as the wider team grows, our in-market teams will continue to grow. And so that will, again, bring loads more people using the tool. So really, it's about kind of refining information on Waybook, making it just even more easy to use and easily navigatable, and then taking all these learnings from new programs and adding it to Waybook so that we can kind of continue to grow in a really strategic and efficient way.
If you were speaking to a friend who had a similar role in a similar business and they were unsure about whether to start using Waybook, what would you tell them?
I would tell anyone who's interested in, or potentially using Waybook, that 100% it's a good decision. We've used so many tools over the years to do lots of the aspects that Waybook can do, and here we're bringing them all into one tool. And as I say, in the past, we've spent lots of money and lots of time kind of developing different systems with various platforms. Actually, there's so many more things you can do in Waybook, so much more functionality than I thought when I first started using it. So I would say be open-minded to what it can do, because I think you'll be impressed. And even for me, I've got a lot more to learn as we continue using it. So
what advice would you recommend to someone who's just getting started?
When you're just getting started with Waybook, I would say there's a lot of really good support tools. Every time I don't know how to prep something or I just want to check something, there's some really helpful videos, clear explainers as to how to set something up. But I also think it's a great tool for just kind of testing, starting building paths, working things out by just starting to put content in and working through it yourself. And then as I say, it's very intuitive and easy to use. So you'll learn a lot just by starting to build out a library and working through it.
How would you describe Waybook?
I would describe Waybook like a map that looks really nice, like a really high quality. I'm thinking of the tube map, really clear patterns and ways to navigate it. But under there is just so much information, the whole of the city, but really easily navigatable.
What are some of the benefits of using this for teams that need different access?
We're quite a small but agile company where, there's so much happening in your particular department. You need to really be able to focus on the information that's key for you. So being able to limit access to certain teams, to certain content is really useful. But also, as we've been onboarding staff, being able to introduce different parts of Waybook at different times has also been useful to avoid, people skipping ahead, taking it step by step. And then also the progress function to be able to see what users are accessing and how much of the content they've been able to review. That's giving us insights all the time into how we're preparing content and how much we're expecting people to kind of get through and understand. The test functionality where you can put in quizzes and check how people are absorbing the information has been really useful as well, to see new starters that get up to speed really quickly because of the way the information is laid out and being able to access suitable bits at suitable parts of their onboarding. Engaging with Waybook, it's so commonplace every day. To think how much we're going to use the Slack integration now that we don't have to find it on Waybook. That's already going to save us time, because it is just such a trusted resource for information. And because at Immerse, things change a lot. We're innovating all the time, new programs, new products, new markets. Having that kind of resource that is really trusted, single central record, is key. If it's on Waybook, it's a policy or a process that we've tried and tested and is correct. So I think everyone in the team really feels that, so they really trust it. So it becomes, second nature to go to it straight away. as soon as you want to check something. Also working remotely, we are kind of hybrid, London, and then with team based across the UK and internationally. Having that resource that you can access all the time when you can't just turn around and talk to someone in the office and ask a quick question is so invaluable. I think in a way it's almost kind of replaced that sense check of things that you go to Waybook straight away when you can't just turn to your neighbor.